Hello and welcome to Grafana's Big Tent, the podcast all about the people, community, tools and tech around observability. I'm here with my co-host Tom Wilkie. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Matt. How you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. That theme tune's good, isn't it? Do you like it?
I do like that. We were just having a chat about it before, and it really gets me in the mood for the podcasts.
Yeah, you need it. You actually refuse to do the podcast without it, don't you?
I do, yeah. Did you enjoy your little trip to the south of France last week? Was it last week?
It was last week. It was lovely, yeah. Beautiful place. Nice, food, nice drinks, lovely people.
Oh, I was going to say about the people, yeah. I'm actually going literally to the same place tomorrow. So
yeah.
Me as well. I'm flying to Nice on Friday.
Oh, blimey, we'll all be there.
Oh, okay. No, didn't realise
cool.
that.
So bougie.
The other voices you just heard, let's introduce them. We're also joined by Torkel and Ryan from Grafana, the Grafana team. Hello. Hi, Torkel. How's it going?
Hello. Well, it's going pretty well. Summer is over, and
Did you have you had your day of summer in Sweden? Did you?
well, more like a month, but we'll take what we get.
Yeah, just top up your vitamin D, and then you can go back in for another year. Ryan, you also didn't you start contributing through open source to Grafana? Isn't that how you got into Grafana?
Yeah, so time flies, but I was working a while back with an experimental hydropower company, and we were looking at various ways to build control systems and monitoring, and found Grafana in its early days. And I started working a lot with the plugin ecosystem at the time and built our entire control system and visualization based on Grafana. And then, many years ago, we began this Angular to React migration, which changed all the things, which pulled me in deeper to make sure we could continue to build kind of our custom applications within this platform. And I kept working more and more with that. And, my contributions in the software side were probably more interesting than what I was doing for the hydropower. So, and really enjoyed working with Torkel and the rest of the team here. So joined now is 6 years ago. So
Wow.
Off we go.
It really scares me that Grafana's being used by power stations.
It's more than that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the space ones as well recently, right? Like, hopefully nothing in the critical path though.
No, we are though, because I was chatting to the guy from the Japanese space agency, and they were saying that essentially they can't see anything except for Grafana. That is where the data shows up. So that is literally their view into what's happening when they put things on the moon and that, which is kind of amazing.
Definitely not something that I kind of imagine when setting out, sort of creating Grafana is going to be used for power stations or spaceships.
What was it for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, funnily enough, in the beginning, it started very it started with application level metrics. Like I really wanted to get insight into a microservice system we were building, and simple stuff like sort of performance and queue, how the sort of messages were being processed, and what the queue kind of depths were, but then quickly, actually, we started using it for business level metrics as well, to just sort of, and the thing that I really fell in love with is being able to correlate, sort of looking at, this was on an auction site, so being able to see the amount of user bids and the value and how many people logged in, and correlate that with with performance, or if we change something on the site, being able to see in real time the impact on the business of a code change or a performance change or an outage. I remember in the early days, I actually caused an outage on this auction site, and I could so easily in Grafana and with the Graphite sort of metric square library compare to the I'm not sure what Wednesday or something, the Wednesday, the week before, what the total kind of bid revenue or something was. And I could compare, okay, this outage cost us X amount of dollars. And I could sort of plot that in real time, or very sort of quickly look at what the cost of the outage was, because it was so easy to sort of go back a week and compare exactly that sort of the time frame of the outage, and just being able to do that with and put that alongside kind of the normal application level metrics was really to me super exciting.
Yeah, you realize putting all those things together in that one place, unlocks quite a lot of stuff. Did that really help sell it then? Did that really like help convince people that this was useful when you have these outages and suddenly you've got all these insights that they didn't have?
Yeah, I think funnily enough, I think the thing that sold it the most was actually sort of ease of use and looking cool.
Compared to Nagios?
Yeah, compared to most other kind of sort of observability metrics tools that had small image-based sort of image-based graphs that you couldn't really interact with, but really time-consuming to set up and very limiting. Just being able to sort of have these colorful dashboards that were relatively easy for anyone to create and looking good enough so you really wanted to have them on a TV. Like that's the thing that sort of really made it so that every team in the company walking past or seeing sort of other teams' dashboards, triggered them to, we want this as well.
Yeah.
Because it just looked cool and was relatively easy for them to do that.
Do you think the move to remote working has kind of impacted Grafana adoption because of that?
No, I actually think so, because I think the thing that really spread Grafana, I think in the early days was seeing other teams sort of TVs on walking past them or so I think in some sense I think that the work from home has reduced that sort of visibility into other teams kind of way of working and seeing their TVs mounted kind of on the wall as you walk past them.
Yeah. But so was that intentional when you built this? You didn't need to make it look good, right? It could have just been black lines or something on white paper.
You clearly don't know Torkel.
Well, it was intentional in the sense that this was maybe the third kind of UI project that I built at that point. And for me personally, I like working with software that look good. And so that's just a I know that I'm going to invest more time in it. I'm going to enjoy using it more if it looks cool and looks like well designed. So was mostly as working towards my own preference. Like if I'm happy working on it and using it, maybe others are.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people still underestimate that. I think the whole Web 2.0 thing showed us that websites actually can look pleasant as well, and they can be usable and easy to navigate and all this. And that's when I really started to pay attention to that front end and the fact that you can have two bits of software that are identical, but the one that has the more beautiful interface, I feel like it's just going to win. Like it has, we're still humans and it still matters. So yeah, I agree with it. And I always appreciate it. I saw some pictures of early Grafana and it did from the beginning, it looked great. And I think, why not?
So this is now, because this podcast is about the 12th release of Grafana, right? Can you believe it's been 12 releases now? Like, did you ever think we would, still be working on this project 12 years on, Torkel?
No, far from it. Before I started Grafana, I think the longest I've been working at a single company or project or product was maybe 2.5 years or something. Starting out something that I would be working on 12 years later, was very far from my mind. But one of the things that I enjoy about that, and I think that sort of carries over from my time before Grafana, is that I cared a lot about sort of the code maintainability and like thinking about architecture and systems like that can evolve and change. And I used to be very highly into sort of extreme programming or test-driven development and thinking about code that is easy to maintain and change. So having worked on a single code base that sort of evolved for 12 years has been very rewarding and and being able to learn from that past kind of pre-Grafana life and try to apply it to open source, which is also a very different kind of environment, has been very sort of interesting and rewarding.
And also, like, you know, it must be rewarding working on a piece of software that's reached so many people, right? Like, I definitely don't think I've ever worked on a piece of software that's been used so widely in the industry. Like, what is the current kind of, at least publicly released number for the number of Grafana users?
Yeah, I think the latest numbers I've seen is like everywhere from sort of 25 to 50 million, depending on how we count, sort of, and depending on how we count sort of active users and not active users. But I think the census it's a lot. It's like a lot. It is.
How many software engineers are there in the world, right? You know, we must have a fair proportion of the market, right?
It's also all the people trying to understand what the software teams are doing, not just the developers themselves. So
yeah, no, I think that's a pretty. Yeah, that's a really good point, Ryan. That, like, it's not just developers. Like, it's a pretty big sort of set of potential users when you include sort of product managers and every person in a company that sort of cares about.
There's so few projects where the whole team, the whole company doesn't care what you're doing. So different levels of, you know, what parts are traditionally observability versus, you know, business metrics. Who knows? But the audience is huge.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess if you could put your finger on like one thing in Grafana that's led to this like level of usage and the growth and like the engagement that we have with the community, what would it be? Like, leading question. Like, I know what I think it is.
For me, it's that it looks good and allows you to extend to whatever your systems happen to be. And we all know those change over time. So that's part of our pluggable open framework where, you know, this started off, you know, driven entirely by Graphite, right? Graphite was super important, but over time, Prometheus became kind of more important. And we're seeing new data sources pop up, new ways of visualizing stuff, you know, who puts their data in which sources. So I think currently we support about like 200 or so different sources of data, which kind of allows teams to work with their data wherever it is.
Did I see correctly that, like, in aggregate, all of the SQL data sources are now like more popular than the Prometheus data source? Like, in aggregate, or are they just growing more quickly in usage? Or
I haven't looked at the recent numbers, but that sounds about right. And the flavors of SQL are amazing. I don't know. You'll see some of the most interesting AI projects now tend to use SQL as their lingua franca, because we all know I don't want to learn to write logql, but you know, you can have AI write so much stuff based on SQL style languages.
Yeah, it's I think it also speaks to the growth in Grafana usage being outside of traditional like IT observability and software observability. I think, like, you know, there are not a lot of monitoring systems using SQL as their query language.
Yeah, and they evolve and change all the time. So part of what's been great about Grafana is it lets the teams evolve as the backing technologies improve and over time.
Yeah, and I think also the usability improvements over time as well must be opening Grafana up to more and more people. Yeah, because you know, with Explore, I mean, it was a kind of a pro tool in those early days, and there was a lot of, I'd say, a lot of people, so many features, it's all packed in, so much power and so many things you can do. But of course, then that becomes a barrier to new people entering it and stuff. But seeing like the query builders, these UIs that help you build those queries, even the drill down apps, which just you don't even have to look at the queries at all. And the new assistant, the AI assistant that we're building, another way for people to interact with their data and, you know, in natural language. Suddenly everybody can start to ask questions of their observability data. So yeah, I feel like that's also a thing. I see it just gets easier and easier to use over time as well, which I think is great.
So speaking of improving Grafana over time, what is you know, what are the improvements in Grafana 12 in our 12th release?
There's a lot, and there's a lot under the surface, I would say. But for me, the most important kind of foundational shift that we've got is really a look at our API structures and how we're going to improve things over time. So dashboards as code, we've talked about forever. We've tried it forever. We are now taking kind of a schema-first approach, a consistent API to all of the things that you read and write out of Grafana. So dashboards being the key one. So one of the main things is we have a new model for the dashboard API that allows you to write dashboards essentially as resources, the same way you're used to writing them in Kubernetes or other systems, declarative systems. And then that allows the thing I'm most excited about, but it's a little experimental, so just beware here, is we have a Git sync that project that's gone on for years, but has been, it's kind of hindered by not having a schema-first approach. But this lets you essentially configure Grafana so that when reading and writing dashboards, we're actually reading and writing them to external static repositories that can have your own version tracking and governance for how those get deployed out. So we've all built kind of flavors of this to make it work over time, but it's now letting us keep that, but continue to edit in the UI, continue to use all the tools so that you're not always writing them, by hand or from code that you barely understand.
I'm really excited about this feature in particular, and I'm sure many of our listeners have experienced this themselves. We've got some Grafana instances with 100 copies of the same dashboard, because you go in and you just want to tweak that one thing, but you don't want to break the dashboard. So you create a copy and you tweak it in your copy, right? Is the Git sync, Ryan, is that gonna fix that?
So, yeah. So, I mean, again, everyone manages their stuff however they do. We all have different ideas of how to best do it. So it's hard to apply governance. And one of the biggest reasons is you don't know, can I safely delete something? And if I did, how would I know it's there? Sure, we have them in the database and you can go back and roll back, but that's really hard. With kind of a Git backing, there's so many tools that you already know how to use, that you can put your key stuff under one branch, promote it. There's so many workflows that we can deal with. So again, how would you safely do a massive upgrade? It's a little terrifying in our kind of totally closed off flavor. But if I could dump everything into a Git repository, run some scripts and see how the whole thing works and safely roll back, I'm much more confident in those ability to just delete a bunch of stuff or archive it if we're not going to use it. Because we have these problems of people with millions of dashboards, but you realize, well, that's because either they had programs write thousands of them, and really that could just be a variable. But then how do you know which ones to delete? Can you safely do it?
This is also going to allow us to integrate more into existing development practices, and dashboards as code is about using, CI tools to check your dashboards, to lint them, to make sure they meet your organizational standards, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, with this common metadata wrapper around all our APIs and a common system for adding schemas, this opens up one of the things many people struggle with is our Terraform providers. So now that they're based entirely on schemas, getting Terraform to play nicely with it is significantly easier and more robust. So with this, we've got a new Terraform provider that reads these new versioned APIs.
Yeah, I like to be able to have a PR and have a discussion about changes to a dashboard and decide as a group, for co-owned dashboards. It'd be great.
Yeah, and be able to see and preview what changes might look like before kind of committing to them.
Does it?
Yeah. To be able to see it visually, not just from, JSON code.
Although I heard that's how Torkel reads dashboards. Just looks at the JSON. Is that true? No, because it loves a beautiful UI.
Well, before Grafana, that's how you edited most dashboards. Dashboarding systems was just a JSON editor.
No, I'm excited about dashboards as code. We've been, as you kind of alluded to, Ryan, there's been lots of ways of achieving similar effects in the past. but they've all kind of, there's been 10 different ways of uploading your dashboards to Grafana, right? Like there's been, 20 different formats for storing your dashboards in Git. And so like, I also like the fact that we're starting to get a little bit opinionated about this and starting to say, no, this is the way you should do it. And this is the way, we're going to make it easy. We're going to make it so that, 80-90% of the community does it one way, and we can develop more, automation and ease of use features on top of the one true way of doing it.
Yeah. And importantly, I think, when people choose kind of automation and governance and review, it has meant that you have to work in tools that you're really uncomfortable with. And that's not why I use Grafana. Like I like to use the UI. I want to see what it is. I want to futz with it because I don't know what the stuff looks like. So the piece I'm most excited about is being able to merge those two into one workflow. Because, we see so many people that try with kind of programmatic rigor, but then once it's in the database, it's just too easy to edit and let's go with it. So how do we let you choose what balance of that you want is where I'm excited about it. And in particular, then what that means for distribution models of like, how do I have a, one central repository where we all think about it, but then I could deploy that out to multiple offline sites. How do I, and again, we have so many tools in the past to do this, but can we come up with a way where we're all sharing on our shared knowledge and improved procedures? So.
One of the things you mentioned, like resource-based declarative like APIs, and you mentioned the K word, right? Like, there's a little bit more to it than just a little bit, like Kubernetes, isn't there?
Well, so at its core, we've taken the foundation of Kubernetes is such a hard word because it brings so much baggage in what you think it is. So by no means is Grafana becoming Kubernetes. We're not saying you require Kubernetes. What we're using is the foundation of Kubernetes, which is something called an API server, which is essentially CRUD, like basic, create, read, update, delete of resources with some additional kind of common metadata around them. Kubernetes is complicated because it is both this core foundation and the application that we all kind of are aware of that operates pods, et cetera. So that's not what we're doing, but we are using the API server framework from it, which not invented here. So it's, it has issues, but at least they're not the ones we made. It's something you can be familiar with. It should not be a surprise what our APIs look like. And over time, we are migrating all of our current resources. So we're starting with dashboards and folders because they're really the core of it. We've had some for a while that no one really cares. Like, oh, you can provision your playlists.
Yeah.
Great. But dashboards is why this matters. Next up and soon are data sources, because obviously that's the next biggest one. But in general, it's all of the things that you edit in our UI. This process makes it so that we can have as code first, and our UI is operating with those same patterns and resources.
Actually, I think this is a little spoken about kind of industry trend that's emerging to start to adopt the Kubernetes API machinery, like to power CRUD apps, right? Like, because the more I speak to other companies, other open source projects, the more I find they're doing the same. They're just not talking about it, right? And the way I see this is like, this is really REST done right. REST promised a lot of the things you just said, but there was never actually like a standard for what REST meant, right? It was never actually interoperable with anything else, right? And there were so many different flavors of it. So my view is that the Kubernetes API machinery is just REST done correctly. Like, what do you think?
It's challenging, I'm going to say, because at small scale, 100%. Like the Kubernetes pattern of you have declarative resources and then a bunch of things watching them to try to make sure they eventually get into the state that you want is great. That does get hard when you start adding things like authorization to it and your permissions rules. Like it does get really hard when you're modeling your some of these things like secure values. Like there's no kind of native Kubernetes way of doing that. So that's been our biggest challenges is like, how do we keep a robust authorization model? How do we keep, real security with secure values? MD5 encrypted secrets is not, a real secure value. So I agree with it in principle. It's the scale and kind of choices that Kubernetes APIs are built around the Kubernetes scales. And across Grafana, we see such a wide scale of usage that it's challenging.
What do you mean by that? Like by wide scale of usage?
You're not operating millions of pods, but people have millions of dashboards. And, it's a few people, but the choices that you make around how to build things, the scale does matter.
This is I think you're referring to not being able to have a secondary index on dashboards in the Kubernetes world, right? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
I think it's buying into the Kubernetes ecosystem, super powerful, but the way people write, and the operators are conceptually one of the most powerful things about it is you just watch any of the resources you have. Operators written poorly just destroy databases, right? That's just how they work. So you can very quickly get things to have cyclic updates. And when the numbers are small, that's no problem. When the numbers are large, it becomes a problem. So that's been our challenge, is how do we actually offer a platform that's Kubernetes based, but has enough guardrails so we can keep things as resilient and strong as they are. Because at some level, Grafana is just a repository for a bunch of static dashboards. So it shouldn't be too challenging to run. But with loops and stuff, things get complicated. I may be a bit in the weeds and sort of focused on these because these are my daily concerns. But the end result and where we're targeting is that kind of same experience of watch resources, any of them, and put the system in whatever state you want.
Yeah, when you talk about this, dashboards APIs now having real schemas and things like this, what does that mean? What was it before? How does it not have a schema before? Surely it had fields and values and...
Building on top of this API server means so many things. At the core, what I see is it's a versioned API. Is the structure enforces that you have essentially slices of your entire API that have versions to them. And what that means is I can change my versions over time. And Grafana, for whatever reason, we started off with one version and added fields to it and would change them, but it was never based on something with a strict API that came first. So we would always kind of retrofit our APIs, but without versions, you can't change them in meaningful ways. So one of the more interesting things that I'm really excited about is, dashboards have existed kind of in their form for such a long time. And there's so many out there that we can't really change it. But now that we're introducing a new API, we've taken the opportunity of we could actually totally rethink this and address many of the challenges and limitations with them. So I don't know, Torkel, do you want to talk about some of the new conditional rendering?
Absolutely. I think, but first, just to kind of go back to that, dashboards has always had schemas, since version 1. We've had a concept of a schema version, and it's the thing that's been made it possible for Grafana to be backwards compatible. We make schema changes almost every version, and we have migrations that sort of always roll for dashboards forward. So you can sort of almost import a dashboard from 10 years ago or any sort of year, basically. And most of they look almost identical, and everything should work in 99% of the time. Or importing a very old dashboard works thanks to this kind of schema version. The problem is that this was all kind of in the front end, and the schema was not the schema themselves wasn't sort of versioned, and that you have to go back to the source code to look at sort of the state of it and find the migration for that particular version. But the way that the schemas was defined was mostly just in code, and so we couldn't actually translate the schema to different languages, to an Open API spec, or to sort of other formats, or use them as a foundation to build kind of dashboard as code libraries.
The schemas that have existed forever only mattered if you were writing the dashboard code itself. But for all of the people external to that, there's been kind of only kind of the most basic of reverse engineered traditional schemas, I would say. And that's the piece that's changing here, is that we're making all of these resources start with something that is intended to be used across the whole ecosystem, not just in our rendering engine.
Given the fact that we have this new API and we have these new schemas, we did rethink kind of the schemas quite a bit in terms specifically towards how we store dashboards and how we store dashboard layouts. And the reason we did this was to enable us to introduce new layouts, new ways to structure dashboards. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for many, many years, because the current or like the old dashboard layout engine was very limiting. It's very flexible in the sense that it allows you to create very powerful sort of panel layouts where every panel has its own position and size, which you can create very complex panel layouts. But because every panel has a specific position and size, it makes dynamic features very hard. It makes it makes it hard to do panels that can conditionally be shown or hidden, because if you hide a panel, the positions of all the other panels will actually change. And it also makes it the as code kind of scenario a little bit more painful, because you have to sort of position panels sort of with these absolute coordinates or the grid coordinates, instead of like just caring about I want just these 3 panels. They should be this size. Like I don't care about their position on the screen or their Y position or X position. I just have these 3 panels and they are this size. So that's kind of having a new way to lay out panels that are more based on constraints. Like this panel should not be smaller than this, or I want a layout that has sort of minimum 1 column or maximum 3 columns, and just think about more along constraints. And because a system built around constraints is much easier to make dynamic, responsive on smaller screens, responsive to conditional rules where we can hide panels, for example, based on if there's no data available. That's a very popular feature request going back many, many years. It's like users want to hide panels that have no data, or that can be evolved to more advanced conditions where you can hide panels if the data is above or below a specific value, or if you have a template variable that hasn't been set. So yes, a thing like that, being able to hide a panel depending on if a template variable is set or not, enables you to create kind of more dynamic in-dashboard drill downs. Just clicking on something in a table, for example, sets a template variable, and now you can sort of conditionally show a drill down view or a detailed view, depending on what you clicked. Being able to do that without sort of creating a separate, maybe drill down dashboard, which is kind of how users did this in the past, or have that drill down view always visible, but just show blank data or empty data. So anyway, so conditional panels opens up a lot of new ways to build dashboards and new workflows. So that's something.
I mean, what's interesting about this is so many applications. Like dashboards get you pretty far, but then we find things that want kind of a stronger experience, and you end up having to write a React app that essentially gives you a drill down into something where choose these 3 buttons and I'll show you 4 different layouts. But an incredible amount of actively written and maintained code. And these new layouts really let us do that with our kind of more traditional WYSIWYG editor style. So I'm pretty excited about how much of the code we can get rid of based on these static declarative models that, again, share all of our experience and make these common experiences much more declarative.
Yeah, and another thing that we see in kind of many of the kind of new data apps that we have in cloud and customers building using kind of the scenes framework. We see a lot of sort of heavy use of tabs. So in just not just kind of breaking up a dashboard like data experience into rows, which is the only thing that we've had in dashboards. Many of the new scene-based apps have used tabs to just break up a piece of kind of observability data exploration into more bite-sized chunks, and that's something that makes a ton of sense to have in dashboards as well, to just a different way to structure it and make it more discoverable, because rows can be below the fold, you have to scroll to see them, and it makes it a little bit more sort of harder to take in what is available. So yeah, tabs is also a big, I think, thing that's coming to dashboards with these new layouts, and giving all these kind of new capabilities. We also wanted to improve the editing experience. So there's also a new way to select objects in the dashboard, edit properties that you can. So now you can just directly select a panel or a layout or a template variable and edit its properties without having to go into a full view or a modal or a sort of the old settings, full page settings views. Now you have a little bit more kind of familiar editing experience if you have used other tools that have more of a blank canvas where you can place objects, select them, edit options. That's going to be a little bit more the experience going forward.
But let's be clear that this new editor, the advanced dynamic layouts, they're introduced as a kind of preview feature in Grafana 12, so you can see them. We really want people to check them out, see how well it works, but you have to know that it's experimental and that's evolving.
That's very important is that in Grafana 12, all these new dashboard layout features and editing is highly experimental, and it's not something that we recommend you enable in production for multiple reasons, like both for the state of it wasn't ready, but it's also built on this new sort of API and schema machinery that is also sort of not at the production sort of state we wanted in.
To be clear, the dashboards now have multiple versions. The V1 of this is essentially the API you're used to seeing, and it is production ready. You can use it today. We definitely encourage you, if you're writing tools from code, like look at these new APIs, because this is where everything is moving. They should be familiar. The new layouts is our V2 of dashboards, and in the same API versioning standard, it's the same dashboard is programmatically behind our API converted from one version to the other. So this is where we're going, and it allows us, again, to make big changes when we need them. So we're not going to change the dashboard schema often. I think GCP has been around for 15 years. I think they're at 3 versions. And that's kind of the scale that we're thinking about, is like we've had one version that's gotten us pretty far. It will look very similar to what it is. We're introducing a new one now that allows this nesting, has the schema-first approach where panel schemas are clearly separated out from the dashboard. But this is work we're ongoing right now. And by virtue of using that, we can enable all these other tools like Git sync and external provisioning. But there are a bunch of things that are actually pretty real in 12. So let's so
there's we've talked about the dashboards as code and the APIs. We've talked about the new dashboard rendering, but there's a bunch of really much smaller incremental improvements in 12, right? That we're equally excited about. So I guess one of them actually, question for you, Matt, because I think you worked a bit on this, didn't you? You worked on the drill down apps. Yeah.
If anyone that doesn't know about the drill down apps, this started with, I think, Torkel, you did a kind of prototype, Data Trails it was called, which I still think is a really cool name, by the way. It never got used. But this was the idea of, instead of you having to write the query, we'll proactively just write lots of those queries and show you the results, and you can kind of just browse through them. and you see something at a high level, which you can then drill into, and like you go through the details to figure it out. And these turn out to be very popular. And again, it's part of that usability. It makes it's even easier now to use, and therefore more people can use it. A developer who might not be in Grafana every day, an engineer still might want to be able to go and look at some bits sometimes. And before they'd have had to have learned PromQL, LogQL, and various query languages, and now they don't with the drill down apps. And yeah, the team are just kind of phenomenal. Like there's these four squads are basically building each app. Just a bit of internal there, but the metrics one I think is phenomenal. It's got new filtering and grouping. A big problem in metrics is there's just so many metrics. You don't have to have a massive system to still you have lots of metrics, and finding the right ones is a big challenge. You get this sea of graphs. So being able to just do simple filters like prefix and suffix filtering, which you can now do, very useful, and grouping by labels. So yeah, if you're using labels properly, that's an extremely powerful way to be able to drill into metrics and stuff. So very excited about that. And I know they're going to be doing more work. The logs drill down one has a new JSON panel, which I think is quite exciting. And by the way, we did a Grafana campfire call on this. If you search in your favorite search engine for that, it's a regular community call we do. There's one on the drill down apps where we drill down into these apps, which is a bit meta. But the new JSON panel is great. If people use JSON logs, now you can see the fields properly. You can choose which fields you care about, and it's just UI improvements phenomenal there. And then profiles and traces, they're also GA. The traces has this really cool auto sort of investigation tools. They just give you tools right in the front end for you to just do sort of common things like looking for root cause correlation, comparing things, highlighting differences and stuff like this. So yeah, and they're great. If you haven't used them, they're open source. You can I think they ship now with Grafana. So yeah, drill down.
I've actually started. I wrote PromQL for almost 10 years, right? But even I start using the metrics drill down app now more than I end up writing PromQL. I find it faster and easier and quicker. And ditto with, I helped design LogQL as a language, and I still find the logs drill down app is easier. So yeah, they definitely get my massive seal of approval. I use them almost every day.
They're good because you can start there. You can still always, at every point, you can open and explore. So you can always go back to the more advanced, and you get the query, you see the query that it's built for you. It's actually a good way to learn as well if you are interested in that. But yeah, the usage has been great. Like they've been they are really popular, and I think it is because just easier to use, and you do less, and people are busy.
We've also got some new themes, haven't we, Torkel?
Yeah, well, we do have some new kind of look and feel experimental themes, but I think they're marked as experimental, but they are enabled as by default. And these are kind of maybe not sort of themes that will stay around in their current form forever. They are more like trying to explore what Grafana could look like
to revive Winamp.
Yeah, but because Grafana has had a kind of a theming architecture for a number of years, but we've still just had these two dark and light themes. So I was really happy to get this into Grafana 12 to finally have explore some new ways where Grafana can look a little bit differently, have some slightly different sort of color palettes. I think these new themes don't include a new visualization color palette. I think they're mostly just for the UI itself. But I think that's also something we hope to look at into the future. But yeah, check them out. They are in the profile page, or in the there's also accessible, I think, from the profile menu, so you can change kind of theme anywhere you are.
So I find the themes kind of fun. It's nice to change it up a bit, but it's also been really interesting to see how we can use this to audit our own UI and in particular plugins, because changing the themes makes it really clear which ones are using the standard classes, using the standard libraries versus have kind of shoved in raw CSS wherever, which doesn't work well as we go. Same thing with internationalization. So there's been a huge amount of effort towards adding internationalization places. And again, we've got some special languages you can shift to that really make it clear when you have or haven't translated or enabled this for across our UI.
The way I do it is, the way I validate that my themes and all of my code is correct is I send it to Torkel, and then he'll just send back and say, this border should be border weak. This one, the border radius is non-standard. It just sees it all. It's like Rain Man but for Grafana dashboards.
I still run my Grafana in light mode or manager
Do
mode.
you?
Yeah, I much prefer light mode to dark mode. I don't know why. I think dark mode likes a bit 80s.
Well, I also use a lot heavily use light mode. It kind of depends on time of day, but like at night, if I'm coding or working on Grafana late at night, I might be using the dark theme. Mainly just because I haven't for a couple of years I haven't been super happy with the dark theme. There are like things that I think the new themes, one of the new themes at least, tries to solve some of them. But yeah, I actually like the light theme as well for at least some.
And for screenshots, embedding graphs in a Google Doc, it always ends up light theme.
Yeah.
So
no, definitely. Yeah.
You've seen me there, Ryan. That's basically my day job now.
Yeah.
We've also built a bunch more data sources, I think, haven't we? Like that 200 number keeps going up.
Yeah, it's impressive to see these things just keep appearing. Obviously we internal to Grafana support a bunch of them, but we keep seeing new contributions for stuff I haven't seen before. So, but some of the ones I've seen recently is Drone, Netify, and Zendesk.
I think behind the scenes, I'm not an expert on this though, right? But I think the data sources team in Grafana have like a new, like more declarative SDK for building these data sources, which is allowing us to produce more quickly with a lower maintenance burden. Does anyone know anything about this?
Sounds clever.
Yeah. So most of the data sources are translating other people's APIs into the data response that Grafana UI expects. And so coming up with more declarative ways of doing these API transformations, which, written in Python become pretty obvious. Like that's what Python thrives at. But over time, we've come up with good ways of doing that within the ecosystem that we're building with.
Nice. And on the kind of topic of data sources, one of the things this actually for me is one of the things I'm almost most excited about in the recent Grafana releases is our new SQL expressions. Right? Do you want to, Ryan? I think you've got a bit of history here, haven't you?
Oh, this thing is great. But essentially, the single pane of glass story has always been that your data's in multiple places. Like they all have various levels of capabilities. Yes, if it's all in Prometheus, you could probably come up with some PromQL expression to do most of it. But then once you start trying to use it for, business data, it gets awkward. And we have built transformations, we've had expressions over the time. But in 12, we've introduced a new kind of way to combine results from multiple queries and then execute them as if they were SQL joined tables. So all of the features that you get from essentially a MySQL query, you can use as if each of the results of a query was one of the tables you're joining with. And this really greatly improves how much we can support and how common that can be.
Yeah, I really also the comment you made earlier about like AI knows how to write SQL. It doesn't know how to write 200 different query languages. And so I'm really excited about a future where we can do more with this SQL engine and where we can use it, to join across data sources and even maybe one day directly query data sources. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we recently added support into the assistant for a lot of SQL stuff. So yeah, and it is good at that. It's quite good at PromQL, but because so much of Grafana is open source and so much of the conversation in the ecosystem is open source, LLMs have a good intuition about Grafana anyway. So even if you're using ChatGPT to ask it about Grafana questions, then it does quite a good job because of that.
And other LLMs do exist.
Other LLMs do exist. Anthropic, we use that one.
I've got Claude at home, Claude Desktop, because I just like desktop apps, and was doing some SQL yesterday actually, and it generated some really interesting structure in my SQL that I would never have done myself.
It gets creative.
Did the SQL expression start as a hackathon project?
I can remember a very early hackathon. So we're using Dolt Hubs. They have a MySQL engine written in Go. And 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago in the very first hackathon, I used the same SQL engine to do a project called PromSQL, which was to query Prometheus with SQL. And I remember showing it to Sam, who ended up doing the SQL expressions and replacing. Am I right? We were using DuckDB as a sub-process, and then we moved to Dolt Hubs Go.
Correct. So one of the hackathons looked at pumping data into DuckDB. Super powerful, but with the Dolt Hub flavor, we don't even have to do the translation because it's already natively in the formats that we have.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Dolt Go MySQL engine.
It's impressive. It is
really
very impressive
written piece of code as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and an incredibly well-supported community, friendly community, very helpful.
So Kim, continuing through the list of small improvements in, not small, some of these are pretty major improvements in Grafana 12. Right, we've also got some new authentication work that I will say I don't really understand. What is a SCIM?
SCIM, I think it's a standard or a term for syncing sort of users and groups and permissions, where we've had some kind of external, we've had support for LDAP and other authentication systems for a while, but we haven't had sort of support for active syncing where an external source of users and teams and groups can actually be pushed to Grafana. We've had some sort of syncing that happens as you sign in, and especially for teams, this has kind of been really painful because you have to sort of still kind of set up the teams and then map them to an external team, or if it's an LDAP team or something. Anyway, it required a lot of setup, and to actually then kind of set some permissions, you have to sort of wait for a user to sign in to actually for them to show up in Grafana.
Yeah.
So this SCIM kind of authentication or sort of syncing system, it's much more easy and active, and you get all your teams and users show up in Grafana right away for you to be able to assign permissions.
It stands for System for Cross-Domain Identity Management, SCIM.
Yeah, that was definitely a backronym.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't normally say a system for something, do you? It's not a patent. It sounds like... Yeah, but still, that's cool though. So this is good. You don't have to go in and mess around with all those.
And this is an enterprise feature, right? This is only this is a paid.
This is enterprise, and one of those sleeper ones that I think was just one of many small things we've built. But this is the one that we're hearing the most about of how big a change it's making for people operating their systems.
And last but by no means least, right? We've mentioned the AI assistant a couple of times, but we now have a new way of plugging in things into the side of Grafana. What's this about?
Yeah, so as part of the Grafana 12 and Grafana keynote, we gave a sneak peek at our new Grafana assistant, which is only available on cloud, and something we actually launched now in, I think, preview form on cloud.
Yep, it's public preview now. Yeah.
So this needed a new kind of plugin extensibility kind of feature in Grafana, where a plugin, because this is implemented as a plugin, where a plugin could actually kind of take over a sidebar pane, no matter what page you're on. That's
this is pretty cool too, because I think coming out soon is a new documentation and kind of learning assistant that will come through this same sidebar context. So we hope to.
So this is pluggable then. Third parties could also plug themselves in there, and
that's the plan.
That's the plan. I think there's no official plugin docs for this type of
extension, I think is what we're calling it.
Yeah. It's not a new type of plugin. So any sort of data source or panel plugin can actually register themselves as kind of using this new extensibility. So it's not a new type of plugin. It's just a new thing that a plugin can do. And it's sort of basically, I think, any type of plugin.
Yeah, and this took a long time to do. This was hard to get in. And I really sort of appreciate the friction that we had, because we were kind of really pushing to get this sidebar in. The amount of care that the team take on just looking after that user experience, not wanting to just throw everything into the UI. Like, it's really hard to get these kind of changes to happen. And I think that it should be. Like, people are really sort of paying attention to it and making sure that it's going to fit alongside other workflows and things. So yeah, it was kind of, and it's great. And I think if you've used it, if you haven't used it, go and try it. But it's just such a nice implementation. And technically, we went through a few iterations in the background as well to get it right. But that was a kind of a healthy friction, I felt like, because yeah, you don't want anyone to just be able to just add all sorts of loads of features. We'll end up with the Homer Simpson car. So this is all lots of very exciting things, but can you tell us anything, sneak peeks about what's next? What's coming up? Can people just go to the repo, by the way, and just find this all out themselves? Can they just, because it's open source?
I mean, it's all open source, so yeah, you could see. But I mean, I feel like we've hinted at it already. A lot of what we're doing has been really laying the foundation for what we're doing, what we're building. So, we have our version 1 of Dashboards API that essentially maps to what you've already seen. Clearly the new schema for version 2 and for how we will have declarative resources for all of the objects that you manipulate within Grafana is really the stuff I'm most excited about. And that work just continues along the train of migrating our bespoke APIs into a common structure. So that's the biggest thing occupying our teams at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, and from my perspective, like the future, like the short-term future is actually delivering the new dashboard sort of features that I talked about, because in Grafana 12 they weren't really ready for public preview. So working towards kind of making them ready for public preview is my main kind of goal. What's kind of beyond that, I have actually not sort of yet decided on, at least for me. Like, I think there are multiple things that sort of interest me, where I could see myself like sort of thinking more about, like how AI will sort of fit into building dashboards or other workflows. And another thing that I like, which we also hinted at, is kind of, where do we take the new themes or the look and feel of Grafana? I think Grafana has, in general, kind of looked very similar for the last 8 years. How do we push that to the next level? And is there kind of new things given kind of AI and these new kind of assistants that could warrant a rethink for the rest of the UI, in terms of like how we structure it and how we think about workflows? But yeah, so it's a little bit of an open field there in terms of, at least for me, what's next beyond.
I'm still thrilled to get back to a bit of how do we build operational dashboards, given a lot of our new abilities with layouts and how we render things. We're like much better positioned for this mix of pure observability, but also a mix of like how do we also operate on the systems that we could work with. Obviously done with care, but.
And I think another thing that is big in terms of Grafana as a whole is work towards kind of true multi-tenancy and breaking it up and making it easier to operate at scale and like that's at least like something we care a lot about. But I think it's going to have impact for open source users as well. Potentially make Grafana a little bit more composable for for different kind of scenarios.
Yeah, we're running like tens of thousands of Grafana instances in Grafana Cloud, and moving that towards a more scalable, like multi-tenant microservice architecture is our long-term goal. I think like we could do a whole episode just on just on how we're doing that, and maybe less relevant to the community, but yeah.
I suspect we'll do a few.
Yeah.
Well, you can check out all the stuff that's new in the documentation if you just search for it. It's easiest. What's new in Grafana? The docs are there, and they do a great job. I don't know who does this, but the release notes and everything that you get, they get a proper blog post with videos and all sorts every time. It's like, yeah, they do it really well. So
and the keynote from GrafanaCon as well. We did, GrafanaCon in Seattle a few months ago was all about the Grafana 12 release, and there's loads of videos about this on YouTube if people are interested.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us on Grafana's Big Tent. Tom, always a pleasure.
You too, Matt.
Pleasure for you. Yeah.
I'll see you for breakfast tomorrow.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Do you want to go to Dishoom for breakfast tomorrow?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Ryan, Torkel, you want to come for breakfast?
No.
It's a bit far.
It's a little bit
fine,
far,
Torkel.
yeah.
Don't worry about making it flowery or polite.
Yeah, just say what you really think, Torkel.
Straight out, doesn't want to go. No, thank you. That's basically the kind of review my code gets.
Yeah.
When I show Torkel things. Yeah.
No.
It's very helpful, though, to be fair. Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, Torkel, Tom, and thanks for listening. See you next time on Grafana's Big Tent.